The 1950s was an entertainment era for non-sports cards. This list of the most valuable cards from the 1950s includes actresses like Marilyn Monroe, a lot of Disney cards, and you're also going to see the introduction of musicians. This is one video in a series I'm developing going over the most valuable cards each decade in non-sports. We've done 30s and 40s, which focused more on historical figures, and now we're jumping into the 50s. So let's take a look at the top 25 cards. So my rules for this video, I try limiting cards one per set. Occasionally you'll see two, and I'm gonna be missing some cards in this video. Listen, non-sports cards, they're been produced in over 40 plus countries. Not everything is listed online, and I just don't have that knowledge, and no one out there does. So if I am missing an expensive card that you think should have made this list, please put it down below in the comment section. We're all trying to learn. I learn new things weekly about non-sports cards, as I'm sure a lot of you guys do that watch these videos. Like I said, there's a lot out there, so just leave a comment if I did miss something. Also, this video easily took anywhere from 5 to 10 hours to produce, maybe even more. So if you guys did find value from it, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new. And yeah, we also have channel members if you want to support that way. With that being said, let's start this list. I also do have a non-sports Facebook group. Just a quick ad on that side of things if you want to join it. All right, we're going to start off with 1950 Bowman Wildman. This is card number 72, which is the last in the set. The price for this card is literally all over the place. So back in 2018, a PSA 8 sold for $10,000. In 2020, a PSA 4 sold for $160, but then a 2.5 sold for $36 in 2023. I assume that there's a lot of set registry collectors for this set. The Pop 8 or the PSA 8 that sold for $10,000 is a Pop 1. So maybe there's some sort of bidding war on that, or is it buy it now? Probably should have clarified that a little bit here on this list, but this kind of surprised me for Bowman Wildman because I didn't really expect them to be that expensive. I know usually the first and last card do have a bit of a premium, but I did not expect an 8 to sell for that price hold. And up next, so this is a 1950s Luck Film Stars. So this was a French release with Melba Toast. This is what I was able to capture online. I think it was like a Movie Stars website that had a few of these movie sets, so I just grabbed the information from there. If you know Marilyn Monroe, married to Joe DiMaggio at one point. Also, just an iconic actress from the 1950s. Why this card is here, though? Movie Card website says there's no exact year for this set, and at the same time, the PSA slabs and SJC slabs just say 1950s. So it's hard to specifically date it. I'm sure a little bit more research could have been done based off of who is in the set, if there's any backs on these cards, etc. But regardless, a PSA 7 of this card sold in 2022 for almost $700. A PSA 3 also sold for $362. It's a Pop 6 at PSA. All right, we have another Marilyn Monroe card. We're going to actually have a few in a row. This is from the Idol build set. I'm not going to pronounce all of this. I'm going to mispronounce it, and I'm sure I'll get a comment down below. How do you not know how to pronounce that? Well, I'm sorry. But regardless, this card individually has a Pop of 48 at PSA. A 7.5 has sold for $900 in 2021. A PSA 5 sold this year for $340. I also should mention that I've seen this card labeled as a 1950 card as well as a 51. And also I've seen abbreviated 50-51. So maybe it was a multi-year release or the 50-year dating was incorrect. This is the other card in the set. It actually is a lower Pop. It's a Pop 20. A PSA 6 sold this year for $565. A PSA 7 sold in 2022 for $870. I do want to give an honorable mention for this set. This set is loaded with actors and actresses, but there is one of the earliest Marlon Brando cards, a legendary actor. A PSA 8 of that actually it's kind of cheap, or I expected it to be a bit more expensive. It's around $150. We're going to switch it up a little bit and jump into the Red Menace Ghost City. An incredible design of a card. Honestly, it could be a cover album for a rock or a metal band. It wouldn't surprise me on this side of things. I think it's one of the coolest non-sports cards out there. I don't own one. Maybe one day I'll try to grab one, but it's not a high priority because I like more subject matter of individuals rather than kind of abstract things like this. But Regardless, also in the set, there is a Mao Zedong card. It's called War Maker, but it does use his image. Just to give you a reference on that, a PSA 8 has sold for $943. A PSA 5's about $85. On this Red Menace, a PSA 5's $250 with an 8, selling for $1320 in 2023. So obviously this got the nod over Mao Zedong. That could change in the future, just based off of people collecting a lot of historical figures. But this is one of the most iconic cards for non-sports, not only from the 50s, but just in general. So this easily should have made the list. All right, we're going to have 2 cards from the 1952 Look and See set. Kind of fun fact about the set, this was one of the earliest articles I wrote for Topps, so if you want to look that up, check it out. But regardless, we have Rembrandt over here. What's interesting about Rembrandt is he has a lot of cards that are earlier from 1900s or even 1800s that are scarcer than Look and See, but the Look and See outsells it quite a bit. It's rumored to be a short print within the set. I don't know if I fully believe that, but that's just what the hobby says, right? So a PSA 8.5 sold for $5,000 back in 2014. A PSA 3 in 2024 sold for about $70. And the total pop between PSA and SGC is $359. And then you take a look at something like Queen Elizabeth. She became queen in 1952. One of the reasons why you can date this set. A PSA 9 has sold for $42.06 in 2022. And then PSA 5 sold for $293 in 2024. There's a few names I almost put in the honorable mention section. For the set, Lincoln should be there because there is quite a few Lincoln collectors. Maybe you could also say Washington should be an honorable mention, as well as Einstein. The total pop between PSA and SGC on this is 153. All right, we're going to jump into back-to-back Felix Potins. If you aren't familiar with Felix Potins, they're chocolate cards released over in France. This is the 4th series of Felix Potins. 4th series being they had 4 larger releases around 1900, 1908, 1922, and then 1952. The only ones that are white like this are the 52s. The other ones have black borders. But this is Salvador Dali, super famous painter. SGC 1 in 2024 sold for $138. The PSA Pops 1, there's probably a bunch at SGC as well, so it'd probably be under a 10 pop in total. They are out there, but what I will say is these are very tough to get in high grade. A lot of these were pasted into albums, and then I know you can't tell it on this image, but there's a lot of surface cracking on these cards when you get them in person. So because of those issues, you're not going to see like 7s, 8s, 9s. I mean, typically you're going to see 1, 1, 5, 2 probably being the most common. Another artist over here is Picasso, $144 in 2024 for his SGC 1. I put an honorable mention of Einstein in here because he does kind of have an iconic image within the set, at least in my own personal opinion. Picasso is a PSA Pop 4. Again, there is stuff at SGC. I know it because I've submitted like 2 or 3 over time to SGC based off the 52 Potins. But yeah, another card that I think there's a lot of long-term growth on it, especially with painters. It's an area that people haven't fully explored yet into the non-sports side of things. I mean, think about how popular Dali and Picasso are out there. For $150 for a semi-scarce card of theirs, which may or may not be their first issues. It'll be interesting to see how it grows over time. All right, we're going to jump into 1953 Woody Woodpecker drawing lessons. This actually got sent over to me by a subscriber of the channel. I wasn't familiar with this at all. And yeah, so this in a PSA 8 sold for $300. These do have rounded corners, so you will typically see some higher grades associated with it. The total PSA pop on these is 14. There actually is 3 PSA 10s out there. So I'm kind of curious what those 10s specifically would do. But again, entertainment, right? Woody Woodpecker, very famous character. We're going to jump into another Marilyn Monroe. This is the Ruiz Romero. These were issued anywhere from 54 through 1960. Now, the issue with these is PSA and I believe SGC all labeled these as 54 through 60. This would be like labeling every Topps baseball set from the 50s, 52 through 60. Unfortunately, their researchers over there did not specify the specific year, although the movie card website did some research based around it off of the albums that these came out of and was able to determine specifically what year these came out from. So huge props to that website for doing that research. They did more research than the grading companies. But PSA 6 on this sold for $1,240 back in 2024. PSA 2.5 sold for $250 in 2023. It's a Pop 2. And then another 54 through 60. This was actually a 1955. Initially, when I built out this presentation, this was first. So I should mention that these are issued out of Spain, and they are also paper thin. At least that's what the movie card website says. This PSA 7 sold for $1,240 back in 2024. Again, it is a PSA Pop 1. We're going to jump into 1955 Barrett Sweet Cigarettes Mickey Mouse. PSA 3 sold twice in 2024. I don't know if like someone forgot an auction was going on, or one was kind of inflated in price, but 3 is sold for $84 as well as $200. It's a Pop 40. These aren't the easiest cards to find. When I've been over to the UK shows, I've seen a handful from the set, not Mickey itself. And, this is a kind of like a iconic set within Disney characters. There's also a 57 set that is worth mentioning. They don't sell for nearly as much as the 55s. The 55s are much scarcer. You don't see them in higher grade. The 57s, you will find in a higher grade, and they're easier to come across. Didn't mention any of the 57s in this video if you were wondering. We're going to jump into 1956. Topps made a full set for Elvis Presley cards. And I do want to give a kind of warning sign for you guys. There are Elvis cards that are labeled as 1950 and 52. Those are all incorrect. Elvis didn't record his first song until I think 53 or 54. So there's no way he had a card in 50 or 52. So ignore any of those by PSA or SGC or any of the grading companies that label them as 50, 52. In the past, someone didn't do their research. They really should have, and said, hey, how is there a card set before Elvis even recorded a song? I mean, that's what I would do if I was researching. And I'm not fully trying to bash grading companies in this video, but a lot of this type of stuff should have been fixed before they put the labels out there. Okay, this card itself, a PSA 8 sold for $1,713 back in 2024, but also a PSA 4 has sold for about $100. At PSA, it's a Pop 222. All right, 56 Hocus Pocus, a super scarce issue. Featured this Einstein card in the Einstein video. So if you do want to learn more about Einstein cards, I highly recommend you check it out. I find those videos interesting. Although I know a lot more people watch these decades over individuals like Einstein. But this is a Pop 3 at PSA. 7 has sold for $1,350 in 2024. This next one, I think this is a 55, but correct me if I am wrong. My understanding of Hocus Pocus is if they have decal edges like this, it's a 56 release. If they are straight edges like this, it's a 55. But I didn't think they had full non-sports in 55 Hocus Pocus. Let me know if I am off on this. But regardless, a PSA 5 MC for this Lincoln sold for $250 back in 2020. On the non-sports side of things, there is a ton of cards that are expensive. Just to give you a few comps, a Gandhi and a PSA 7 sold for $500 in 2021. Elizabeth sold in a 6 for $1,250 in 2022. And Charles Lindbergh in a 4 sold for $500. The only reason why I put Lincoln over the ones listed down below, I think the Lincoln market has developed quite a bit since 2020. And a PSA 5 MC is kind of the equivalent of a PSA 3. So think about a PSA 3 selling for $250. What would a Lincoln True 5 sell for? Hard to say and speculate without a ton of data. But regardless, I know Lincoln does outsell Gandhi, Elizabeth, and Lindbergh in every set that they are in together, essentially. There's obviously going to be some one-offs, but that's why I featured Lincoln over these others that have pretty high comps. All right, 1956 Walt Disney cartooning card number 10. PSA 6 sold for $455. A 5 sold for $262. That's a Pop 28. I'm actually not too familiar with the set, although it looks like they have rounded corners. So again, something that you could probably find in higher grade, but there's not a lot of these that are graded. 1956 Topps Davy Crockett Orange. Just looking at some of the prices on these, man, these have been falling fast over the last few years. PSA 8 sold for $366 in 2024. A PSA 4 is about $80. I've seen some cards that are extremely cheap in other lower grades, but historically, some of the higher grade stuff, 8s and 9s, sold for a lot more than they have the last few years. So I don't know if like this set's dwindling or there's been a lot that have been graded over the few years, which kind of messed up with the pop. I'd be kind of curious for someone that has been collecting this set or knows a little bit more information why these card prices have been going down. It seems like a lot of other aspects of non-sports have been going up over the last few years, but this is kind of the polar opposite. All right, 1957 Topps Hit Stars, the Crickets. This is one of the earliest cards that features Buddy Holly. He passed away in a plane crash, pretty famous. PSA 9 in 2021 sold for $4,500. PSA 6 sold for $200. Buddy Holly does have other cards in the 1950s, as does the Crickets. The total pop on this card is $124. All right, 1958 Snap ATV Stars. These were released in London through vending machines. It's a total of a pop 17. 8 sold for $550. A 3 sold for $200. Personally, if you're spending $200, I would recommend just upgrading to an 8. Superman cards continue to gain popularity within the hobby. You guys see this in the top 25 series that I develop every single month. With eBay sales, the fact that you can go up 5 grades all the way to an 8 for $350 seems pretty good. I don't know if a lot of people know about the set. Personally, I did not know about the set before making the video, so could be a little bit of a sleeper card. All right, 1959, new Johnny Cash, famous for his 9 Inch Nails cover. Obviously, he has other songs too, but I'm a 9 Inch Nails fan. SGC 5 sold for $129 back in 2024. A PSA 9 sold for $381 in 2022. This set's loaded, right? You also have early cards of Chuck Berry and Ray Charles in the set. There's others. These are oversized as well. If they weren't oversized, I could see them going for a bit more, but the total PSA pop on this is 51. And as I mentioned multiple times in the video, there are a lot of these cards that are graded by SGC. I just looked up the PSA pops for these. I can always add an SGC again for future videos if you guys want, but I just used it as one reference point. It does take a lot of time to get the pop reports on every single card. 1959 Stooges. So one thing I didn't realize when I was researching this set is there's 2 different variants of a lot of the cards. There's graybacks, which are much tougher than you have your standard back. So just to give you guys some comps on Curly, which is the most expensive in the set, a PSA 5 normal sells for about $300. A PSA 8 sold for $3,000 in 2025. A PSA 8 grayback sold for $10,000 in 2022. The total pop of the normal version is 632. The grayback only has a pop of 25. Those were not included in the 632 as I showed you. Yeah, so it's interesting on that side of things how much of a premium that brought. Another one over here is card number 16, specifically the checklist version. PSA, what I will say with this checklist card, comps were all over the place last year. So I don't know what's going on with this specific card, why comps are like, they're everywhere if you just take a look historically last year. But PSA 7 sold for $1,800. But what I found was kind of interesting in looking up comps is a PSA 10 sold back in 2008 for $16,800 at Master Auctions. And yes, the guy that trimmed the Hannes Wagner and did all the shield building. Also, Mo and Larry are definitely honorable mentions on the set, right? Cards 2 and 3 out there. So those would be like the 4 big cards within the set. This card itself on the checklist back, which by the way, it has a normal back as well beyond just the checklist. The checklist is a pop 91. The checklist far fetches the normal back just because people would cross out the checklist and things like that. You typically see that with baseball cards, right? There's a lot of a premium associated with checklists that don't have any markings. These are Heinerl. I probably mispronounced that, so I'm sure someone's going to leave a comment down below. But regardless, this is a German issue from the 1950s. Very limited sales, by the way. There's going to be 2 Disney cards in here. The first is Walt Disney. A PSA 2 sold for $1,500 back in 2023. Features Donald Duck over there. And then there's a Mickey Mouse with like a blue face, which is kind of odd. I saw a PSA 5 sold in 2023 for $500, and it is a pop of a 2. Our last card is a 1959 Houdini. A PSA 4 sold for $250 in 2023, and it is a pop 9. I'm kind of surprised a Houdini card was featured here. He does have earlier stuff in the 1920s and early 1900s. We'll cover that once we get into those decades of cards because Houdini is quite a popular. And thank you guys for checking out this video. I'm going to put other videos here on the screen right now. Thank you to our channel members. I'm looking forward to doing the 1960s up next, so make sure to stay tuned for that. And always, I'm open to other video ideas, so if you have some suggestions, leave them down below, and I'll catch you guys in another video.